Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're digging into something pretty fascinating, maybe a little unsettling. It's a document called The Conceptual Inventory of Dubious Ethics.
Yeah, and don't let that formal title fool you. The
Hmm.
core idea, the guiding principle behind this whole thing is pretty blunt.
Extremely blunt. It sets the tone immediately. Don't create anything if you can steal it.
Exactly. That's our starting point. It's this foundational belief that just throws creativity and originality out the window. It's all about appropriation.
Right. So our mission today is basically to unpack the language this framework uses. It's this very specific, sometimes really strange vocabulary, often contradictory too.
Precisely. This isn't just, a random list of words pulled from a hat. The inventory part suggests these are codified terms. If you're operating outside normal ethics, maybe you need a whole new lexicon to define what you're doing, rationalize it even.
So we're going to go through these 12 entries, these phrases, and try to figure out why this kind of, let's call it sophisticated ethical compromise, seems to demand such deliberately obscure language. That's the core question for you listening, I think.
Absolutely. Why the need for this kind of verbal gymnastics?
Okay, let's get into it. That motto, don't create, steal, it really sets a stage where taking things is the goal. Speed, maybe deceit, efficiency over effort.
And that takes us right into the first few inventory items. They seem to grapple with this core conflict, between pretending and reality, fraud, and authenticity.
Yeah, the very first one hits that immediately. It's titanic honesty, fraud, octane eyeing, honesty and fraud in the same breath.
Right, it's that internal contradiction. It seems to describe an action that has to be deceptive, that's the fraud part, but it needs to be presented with this overwhelming performance of integrity, the titanic honesty.
It sounds like a strategy for misdirection almost, but not subtle misdirection. Like the fraud isn't hidden, it's just sort of drowned out by this massive show of honesty.
I think performance is the right word, but let's refine that slightly. The titanic part suggests scale, doesn't it? This isn't just everyday spin. It implies the performance of integrity needs to be enormous, monumental, specifically to overshadow or distract from an equally significant deceit happening perhaps right alongside it.
Okay, so the scale of the show has to match the scale of the hidden action.
Exactly. You see this sometimes in, say, complex financial dealings where layers upon layers of convoluted processes are presented as transparency, but they actually serve to obscure. The complexity itself becomes the shield.
That makes sense. Okay, moving to the second one. The language shifts a bit, gets more technical. Chelation, youngster, feinted tenacity. Now, I know chelation from chemistry, it's about binding and removing things, ions usually. But how does that connect with youngster and tenacity, or tenacity?
This is where that specialized lexicon really comes into play, using technical terms metaphorically. Chelation removes unwanted substances, right? Metals, often. So here, chelation youngster tenacity could describe a kind of methodology, a systematic process, the chelation, designed specifically to bind and neutralize or strip away a desirable quality, the tenacity, the resolve from a specific target, maybe a younger, more vulnerable competitor or entity. The youngster.
Ah, I see. So it's not just theft, it's like a codified process for breaking someone's spirit or their competitive edge.
Yeah.
Planned systemic weakening.
Precisely. Not opportunistic, but strategic neutralization. And then entry 3 loops back to this idea of identity. Authenticity connotates sly fearing at. There's still this pressure, it seems, to signal authenticity, to connotate it, but it's tied up with sly fearing.
So the system itself is maybe afraid you have to put on this act of being genuine, but the whole performance is underpinned by anxiety, maybe fear of being exposed. So just the stolen identity isn't very stable.
That's one way to read it. Or perhaps the sly fearing isn't the system's own fear of getting caught. What if it's about the use of fear?
Oh, how so?
Like using fear tactically. Maybe your fake authenticity, your front, is maintained by subtly intimidating others or manipulating the audience, maybe that's the ad, into accepting your claims. So the fear becomes a mechanism of control, not just a side effect of the deception.
Wow. Okay, that flips the script. The fear is weaponized. Right, so that covers the sort of foundational language of deception and identity manipulation. But then the inventory takes a sharp turn, doesn't it? It starts bringing in physical places, geography almost.
It does. Entry 4 shifts immediately. Coastline, ingenuity, and theory fact.
Yeah.
Now, ingenuity is exactly the kind of creative spark this system seems designed to suppress or steal, according to its motto. And placing it at the coastline, well, a coastline is a boundary, an edge.
A point of exchange, or maybe vulnerability. So coastline ingenuity could mean like The place where new ideas, the things they don't create, first appear and are easiest to grab, intercept them right at the source.
Yeah, perhaps where raw creativity emerges and can be easily captured and converted into something the system can use, maybe framed as objective theory fact. It's where the resource pool meets the appropriator.
Okay. And then entry 5 gets weirdly specific. A coastline yard, faint naughty tonic tea, it zooms right in. At coastline yard, and the item, naughty tonic tea, what is that?
It was bizarrely specific, isn't it? And I think that specificity might be the point. It highlights the sheer range of what this inventory covers. It's not just about grand ideas or major fraud. Apparently, even something as niche or perhaps culturally specific as a naughty tonic tea, maybe a proprietary recipe, a local secret is itemized. Nothing is too small to catalog for appropriation.
So the absurdity shows the system's thoroughness, its ambition, like everything created is potentially on the list.
That's how I read it. A kind of zero tolerance policy for letting any values slip through the net. And then look at entry 6, it snaps back to more conceptual stuff. Cautionary, defiant, ethnical, getty, son.
Cautionary and defiant together. That's another one of those contradictions. How can you be both at once?
Well, think about operating right on the edge, ethically or legally. You have to be defiant because you're pushing boundaries, challenging norms, maybe that's the ethnical aspect, questioning established ethics. But you also have to be cautionary to avoid tipping over into clear, provable illegality. It's calculated risk-taking.
And the Getty sun, maybe that's the target, some kind of protected asset or status.
Possibly. Something valuable, maybe with inherent protections. Getty perhaps hinting at established wealth or status, son implying inheritance or legacy, that is being targeted by this carefully balanced act of defiance and caution.
This section really does feel like the language is almost instructional, guiding specific kinds of actions.
I agree. It's prescriptive, not just descriptive.
Okay, let's move into the final set of entries. This is where the language gets, well, even more abstract, technical, frankly a bit scary sometimes. We're talking technology, identity, and even safety, but in very strange ways.
Definitely. Look at entry 7. Sonicated authenticity flattery, angon. Sonicated, that's a lab term, right? Using sound waves, high-frequency vibration on something. Why would authenticity need to be sonicated?
Well, if the authenticity is faked, engineered, like we discussed, maybe sonicated means stress testing it. You shake the manufactured identity violently, perhaps bolstered by flattery to see if it holds up. Or maybe it's about shaking loose any connection to its original source, like cleaning it digitally.
That's a compelling idea. It could be the codified process for scrubbing the stolen asset, making sure the imitation is stable, passes scrutiny, maybe regardless of surface praise or flattery. The angon part is obscure, maybe a specific tool or desired state after sonication.
Could be. Then entry 8, frontage insanely education chatty 8. The phrase insanely education jumps out. What does that imply? That the dubious ethics are hidden behind or enabled by some kind of extreme, maybe overwhelming educational or instructional barrier.
The frontage is probably key there. Creating a facade, right? But maybe an intellectual one. Insanely education might not mean actual learning. It could be about designing a knowledge system, jargon, complexity, endless manuals that's so impenetrable it actively discourages scrutiny from outsiders.
So the complexity is the defense mechanism, protecting whatever is going on behind the frontage.
Exactly. Intellectual obfuscation as a strategy. And that connects really well with the next one, entry 9. Catenation yearlong identity, such aft. Catenation. That's chemistry again. Atoms linking into long chains.
Right, like carbon does. So applying that to yearlong identity, it suggests the identity being stolen or built is synthetic, a long constructed chain maintained over time.
Precisely. Think about modern contexts. Deepfakes, complex synthetic identities built from stolen data points. Catenation could be the term for building that long chain, artificial identity, designed to last, year long, chaining disparate elements into something that appears cohesive. Such aft might denote the specific resulting structure or its purpose.
It makes the technical terms feel less random and more like precise metaphors for specific dubious processes. Okay, entry 10 brings back that mix of the ordinary and the philosophical. Conflated stationery authentic yang, A, taking something totally mundane, stationary, and somehow mixing it, conflating it with authentic yang.
I think this describes manufacturing significance. You take something commonplace, maybe a stolen process or a simple tool, stationary, and through the system's framework and language, you falsely assign it profound importance or philosophical weight. Authentic yang. Maybe a hint at automating this process of inflation. It elevates the mundane theft, gives it a veneer of depth.
making the trivial seem essential to justify taking it. Okay, and the last two, they seem to describe systemic issues, failure, and scale. Entry 11. Reactional unsafety deatoning chitty. Reactional unsafety, that sounds actively dangerous, like safety systems designed to fail when triggered.
That's exactly how it sounds. Not just passive risk, but responsive failure. And detoning sounds like detonating, but maybe implies removing structural integrity, detoning something. That could be the mechanism. This inventory item might define the procedure for making sure a system, perhaps one they've appropriated, intentionally collapses or destabilizes when it's challenged or interacted with. Reactional.
So planned failure built into the system. Terrifying.
It's engineered instability.
Mm-hmm.
And the final entry, number 12. Non-dietary escalating outfit, teachy, nay. Okay, non-dietary, so not physical consumption. An escalating outfit, something non-physical that's growing fast. And it's teachy, instructional.
Like a system, a model, a piece of software.
Exactly. The outfit could be the non-physical tool set, maybe an algorithm, a viral marketing scheme, a predatory contract template, something that can scale rapidly.
Escalating.
Is inherently structured, and perhaps teaches or replicates itself.
Teachy, maybe.
Nay could signify the rejection or negation inherent in its function. This might be the engine driving the whole dubious operation globally.
Wow. Okay, so stepping back from the details, what does this whole conceptual inventory of dubious ethics tell us? It's clearly not just a random list. It feels like a purpose-built language.
I think that's exactly right. It's a specialized lexicon. It seems designed to rationalize and guide very specific, often systemic actions. Everything from putting on a performance of honesty while committing fraud, to engineering systems designed to fail, to appropriating even the smallest cultural items.
And the language has to be complex, technical, contradictory, because the actions themselves are, it's like verbal camouflage.
Precisely. It dresses up theft, manipulation, even engineered danger in the language of process, structure, and necessity. It creates distance, maybe insulates the people using this framework from the straightforward ethical wrongness of don't create, just steal.
So the takeaway for you listening maybe is to be aware of this kind of language. When you encounter systems in business, tech, finance, wherever, that use incredibly complex, jargon-filled, maybe even contradictory language that sounds smart but makes it hard to see the basic action underneath.
It might be serving a similar purpose. It could be the necessary verbal toolkit for justifying practices that are at their core ethically questionable, prioritizing appropriation over creation.
The language itself becomes the smokescreen.
Absolutely.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? If you took a modern system that's maybe pushing ethical boundaries, think about rapid AI development based on acquired data or high-speed trading strategies. What would their internal conceptual inventory sound like? What would they need terms like titanic honesty fraud? Would they need to codify something like reactional unsafety deatoning to maintain an edge?
What actions right now are being masked or enabled by deliberately opaque, maybe bizarrely specific internal languages?
That's something to think about. What's hiding in plain sight, obscured by jargon? We'll leave you with that thought until the next time we dive in.